Emotional attachment is something we all experience at one point or another. It's that deep bond we form with someone, and while it can bring joy, it can also bring pain. The Stoics were well aware of this, and developed ways to deal with emotional entanglements, not by suppressing emotions but by learning how to live in harmony with them. Detaching emotionally from someone is not about becoming indifferent, but about achieving emotional balance, personal freedom, and understanding what truly lies within our control. One of the key teachings of Stoicism is that we must distinguish between what is in our control and what is not. When we grow attached to someone emotionally, we often lose sight of this distinction. We expect them to behave in a way that aligns with our desires, or we pin our happiness on their presence in our lives. This is where the problem arises. Our happiness becomes dependent on something we cannot control. The first step in emotional detachment is the understanding that you cannot control the actions, thoughts, or emotions of another person. You can only control your own reactions and mindset. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, reminds us, some things are in our control and others are not. This simple statement holds immense power when dealing with emotional attachment. It invites us to examine the nature of our bond with others. Are we expecting them to fulfill a need within us to behave in a way that prevents our suffering? If so, we are bound to be disappointed. The realization that others will act according to their own nature and desires, independent of ours, is a liberating one. It frees us from the burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. When you find yourself emotionally attached to someone, ask yourself, what is the source of this attachment? Often, it is our own desires and expectations that keep us emotionally tethered to another person. We expect them to fulfill us in ways that we should be fulfilling ourselves. This is where the Stoic practice of self-examination becomes essential. The Stoics were firm believers in introspection. They constantly encouraged looking inward to assess our motivations and desires. If your emotional attachment is causing suffering, it is not the person who is the root of the problem, but the expectations you have placed on them. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively about detachment in his Meditations. One of his key messages was that we must accept things as they are, not as we wish them to be. This includes our relationships. It's natural to want others to act in ways that bring us joy, but this is not always possible. People will make choices that are outside of our control. By expecting them to act in ways that serve our emotional needs, we set ourselves up for disappointment and frustration. Detachment is about recognizing that we can love and care for others without placing unrealistic expectations on them. Detachment does not mean we cease to care. This is a common misconception. Detachment is not apathy. It is balance. It is the ability to care for someone while maintaining our own emotional stability. We can love without clinging. We can value someone's presence without fearing their absence. This is what the Stoics referred to as living according to nature. It's the understanding that change is a natural part of life and everything is impermanent. When we become attached to someone, we often resist this impermanence, hoping to preserve the relationship in a static form. But life is always in motion. People come and go. Relationships evolve or dissolve. To cling to them as though they will never change is to set ourselves up for inevitable pain. Seneca, another renowned Stoic, offers insight into the importance of accepting the impermanence of life. He teaches that nothing truly belongs to us, not even the people we love. He writes, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." Life is full of change, and emotional detachment allows us to navigate this change without becoming overwhelmed by it. Instead of mourning the loss of what once was, we learn to accept and appreciate things as they are in the present. The ability to release attachment to outcomes, whether in love, relationships, or any other part of life, is the essence of emotional freedom. One practical Stoic exercise for fostering detachment is the practice of negative visualization. This involves imagining life without the things or people to whom we are attached. It's not about fostering fear or anxiety, but about preparing our minds for the inevitable changes that life will bring. By contemplating the loss of someone we care about, we train ourselves to appreciate their presence without becoming overly attached to it. This is not a morbid exercise, but a means of building emotional resilience.